You are listening to the Marc Guzman podcast experience. The very first one is Senate Bill 50. So this is very interesting here because Senate Bill 50 basically is a law that's being introduced in order to create more inventory, more housing supply on the market. And basically the whole premise of the Senate bill is to create or allow cities and developers to build high density housing near transit centers. But no surprise, what we're seeing is a lot of backlash against this. People in San Francisco are really against this, and a lot of NIMBYs, so like people that not in my backyard. And it's very surprising because we all understand about the housing crisis. And again, we keep talking about it every single show that we do. And it seems like no one's getting into their head that it comes down to an inventory supply versus demand.
Well, it's surprising and it's not surprising. In fact, for the last several decades, I've seen this strange dichotomy, especially in the Bay Area, where, as Marc put out, NIMBYs, not in my backyard. And these are the exact same people who are complaining about a lack of housing. Now, to kind of put things in perspective, there's a lot of bureaucracy that goes into getting something just approved, let alone even being able to break ground when it comes to any type of housing, let alone multi-unit housing or housing with different types of classification where you have retail and residential, for example. And what SB 50 is supposed to do is supposed to be able to fast track and identify areas that are more ripe and require this more high density housing, specifically areas closer to transit zones like BART stations and things of that nature. So to kind of put things in perspective, you got San Francisco as the primary employment center where everybody wants to commute into, and of course floods I-80 or all of the freeways. And then now you got Oakland, Berkeley, Emeryville, and you have all these different people commuting in from all over the Bay Area in subdivision areas. And there's this need for higher density housing, apartment units closer to these employment centers. And then, of course, the bright idea would be to put them right next to a BART station.
Well, we also see the trend of people wanting to live closer to where they work, wanting to live near restaurants, shops, and their work. I mean, that's the trend where it's going. And if you look at some of the mega cities in the world, that's the way they're set up, and that's the way people want to live. And as the Bay Area continues to grow, that's really where we're going to. Now, one of the big arguments is that as these developments happen, that there's not much affordable housing available, and that a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom might be renting for $3,000 or $4,000 per month. And I think part of the backlash against this is that there's just not enough affordable housing being built, and you're going to end up with people simply claiming, well, yeah, these developers are just going to build these very expensive luxury apartments, and they're not going to build enough for the people that don't have much that need cheaper apartments. But that all goes back down to supply and demand.
That's actually a horrible argument. In fact, it's a false argument half the time, complete red herring, where there's not enough affordable housing. Because as somebody who actually goes out there and develops, there's a thing called inclusionary units. So the city will mandate a certain percentage of affordable and then very affordable housing. So you'll take out a percentage of your units that range anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20% of the number of units that you're allowed to develop. And the more units you develop, the higher that usually the inclusionary units will be. And then out of those inclusionary units, which are deemed or defined as affordable, 40% of them have to be very affordable, so very low income. And again, it creates all these different dynamics. So this whole argument of that it doesn't address enough housing that people are making. And again, what we're talking about is SB 50. Am I saying that right? SB 50?
SB 50.
SB 50. There's so many different Senate bills out there that sometimes after a certain point, you're like, is it Senate Bill 49 or Senate Bill 50? But again, you're seeing a huge number of people come out. In fact, we'll probably play a clip there where they sing to the Queen song, we will stop you, which is this SB 50. And it's these people like pounding their feet to the tune of this Queen song, opposing this bill as though it's like the evil empire coming, to destroy the land. And when in fact it will probably bring us, the United States, up to speed with the rest of the world.
Okay, so